one issue voter, probably nothing we're gonna say here, at least from my standpoint, is gonna change your perspective. But there's more to running the county than just the funding for KSI. And I asked why vote for Ken Beck? And I have to write this down so I don't forget Rita.
We all have different processes.
Exactly right, but I have more than 40 years of total experience as a civil engineer and a business leader. I'm not a career politician, but dedicated, hardworking, and get it done resident who wants only what's best for Scott County. And I've gained a lot of important institutional knowledge during my 2 terms on how the county operates. For instance, we publish everything online. We don't do Facebook, but we have everything online. If you want to see what's the agenda, what's coming up, so on and so forth. I have a track record, and I'm not an unknown. I'm retired. I can spend the time necessary to research issues, and believe me, we spend a lot of time researching issues when they come up on. But you know, when you take a look at it, 90% or more of the typical items that come across our agenda are routine items. Buying a police car, buying this piece of equipment, hiring this particular person. I'm responsive, engaged with the community, as Rita says. I talk to people all the time in all the committees I'm on and all my social contacts as well. And I'm protective of responsible governance. I have to look out for every single taxpayer in the county on what's best for their interests, not single interest groups that necessarily would like us to pay attention to what their particular need is. I'm a team player, and I collaborate. And the county has collaborated many times. Medic is a prime example of where I collaborated with all the cities along with other members of the board to get Medic under the wing of Scott County so it could continue on into the future to provide the excellent services to all of us, but particularly us that are in the senior area. We tend to need Medic more often than any others. I place a greater emphasis on solutions rather than the problem. I wait to offer solutions until I fully understand the problem. And folks, that's the DNA of an engineer. Make decisions based on fact-based evidence. Will not be manipulated into a bad decision based on the decibel levels of the critics. And I would appreciate your vote come November 5th.
Okay, balance. We all need balance in our lives, right? You're told by your doctors, hey, you need a balanced diet. You need, to balance your spiritual life, health, family, and everything. You need balance. What we have here in Iowa and in Scott County is we have imbalance. We have one party that basically controls the levers of government at the state level. They have the trifecta. They have the governor, the House, and the Senate. Both U.S. senators are Republicans. Here in Scott County, all 5 members of the board are Republican. To me, that is out of balance. You need a different perspective. Yes, the county government is running pretty well, right? I mean, the people that are employed by the county know their job. And that's what you do when you're a good manager of people, when you're a good supervisor. You let the people who have the experience and the expertise come and give you options and give you the information that you need so that you can make the best decision possible. But you must always remember, being an elected official, we are here to do policy. So many of the decisions that we need to make when you're a public official are policy. What do you prioritize? So I am running for the County Board of Supervisors because we need balance, we need transparency, and we need accountability. So let's talk about a couple of things. I believe that one of I don't even know how to say it, there's so many different issues. There's been reckless spending on unnecessary litigation. Currently, there is a case before the Iowa Supreme Court on the Freedom of Information Act, on whether or not the people, the public, had a right to know who the 27 people that were applying. The Iowa Supreme Court will be deciding it. Now, Justice Waterman, in a previous case, he quoted, "Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants." So you need to be open, and you need to let the public know, you need to open the doors of the governing body so that everybody knows what you're deciding and what is the basis of your decision. We need the balance, we need that transparency. Just recently, the board voted on a 3-2 basis to buy a public, an office space in Paul Revere Square. And I believe that they didn't follow their own processes of how to go about buying that office space building in Paul Revere Square. Were there other spaces available? And their money has to be spent to make that space usable, because apparently it has some problems with mold, I'm told. So Tony Kenobi asked the board to buy that office building in Paul Revere Square, and Rita voted yes, Ken voted yes, and Maxwell voted yes. And we had Gene and Postian, Gene Dixon, they voted no, because they wanted to know more. They wanted to understand, what's the rush? We know we're gonna be facing some hard times with the money. Could we use another building that we already own? There were so many questions that were left unanswered, but instead that was rushed through. So we need balance, we need transparency, and we need accountability. Now, currently, the argument that's being made before the Iowa Supreme Court is that when somebody's appointed to a public office, like Rita, that Rita was an employee, and employee applications, like somebody applying for city manager, they can ask for confidentiality because they might have a full-time job. But most people on the board, you can have a job and also serve on the board. It's not, to me, it doesn't even make sense why it was made confidential. And to be fighting it, to be wasting our resources, it's reckless. It's reckless spending when there's tight money, and yet they defunded KSI. When they had the power and they listened to your stories, people came and pleaded with them, gave you stories. You turned a deaf ear. You just didn't care. Well, you know what? This is a time, this is where the voters get to hold everybody accountable for what they did. So I believe that we need to stop the abuse of discretion, and I believe that things are flying under the radar, and I think you need a different perspective on the board. So I'm the only Democrat running. I ask for your support because I will make sure to raise the issues. I'll make sure and let you know when something sensitive is coming up. There won't be secrecy unless it's a personnel matter. There has to be something a real good reason for it. But secrecy for the sake of secrecy, no more. No more backroom deals.
Okay, a lot of things there I want to actually clarify that's for accuracy. First off, let's start with, we can't really dig into Paul Revere Square, but in quick summary, we actually did a full analysis of all vacant properties across Scott County, including our own warehouse building out in Eldridge, and did assessments on what it would cost per square foot to build these places out. And just as an aside, Paul Revere Square, that the 2 floors does not have mold. Just as an aside, it's been remediated. At any rate, so we actually did the analysis, and the reason why we ended up doing that is because our county store, which is our second treasurer site, is located in the DMV building, if you've ever been out there. And the DMV, they are closing that. We are a sub-lessee of the DMV. So when the DMV's gone, we're automatically kicked out. Now, we had discussions about keeping the county store or not. Maybe we save money and don't have the county store, but because we're a service organization, we elected to keep it open for you so that you have another option to go to, because 50% of the foot traffic that goes into the county, to the treasurer's office, goes through that second site. So we didn't feel it was right just to consolidate and close. So because we were facing a deadline, end of this year, that's when the DMV lease is up. We have worked with them, they're gonna let us stay a few months longer, but we are out of the current space that we're in. So it just caused a little bit of a dilemma. But we did do the analysis, all that's on the website, all the places we looked at, all the numbers, the square footage, all of that is there. That's a much larger topic, but, and there isn't a deaf ear to when people came to speak at the last board, when we had our last board meeting for KSI funding, I was listening to you. In fact, I took notes on every single person that spoke, and I have them with me in my little notebook here. There was exactly 34 people that spoke at that meeting. I took notes on every single one of you that did speak, because I was looking for your thoughts and your ideas. Now, what I noticed about that meeting was that the vast majority of people were not clear on what the county funding was paying for. We were not paying for programming on site at KSI. We weren't paying for staff at KSI. We were not paying for the electricity bill at KSI. It was for outreach to seniors living in their home that need help with their utility bills, need help paying rent, need help with other services. So it was outreach. It wasn't a lot of the things that were covered, because I took notes on every single person that spoke. And if anyone wants to look at my notes, you are welcome to. I was looking for your thoughts. What were you thinking? And just a lot of it wasn't related to the funding the county was doing. So there's some lack of clarity there on what that money was actually supposed to be used for. But at any rate, so why should you vote for me? I do want to clarify that the county positions have nothing to do with political parties. That's, just put that out there. Absolutely nothing. None of the county elected positions, even though they're bi-party, they probably shouldn't be, because there's nothing about any of the political parties that directly impacts our work at the county level. Nothing. Auditor, sheriff, board of supervisors, we are held accountable to state law. Whatever law that is, we may not like the law, but we're held accountable to it. It's got nothing to do with Republican, nothing to do with Democrat, at all. Nothing at all. So you gotta make that clear. And I was just talking with him before the meeting, and we both were agreeing that it's really strange that the Board of Supervisors is run by a party, because it doesn't need to be. It absolutely doesn't need to be. Not a connection there, other than how it's set up. So, why should you vote for me? One, I do have a good track record. I've been in city council, I've made good decisions, and I've done a lot of good things in the community, like the DREAM Project. I'm very involved in the community. I'm familiar with senior services. I do a senior class at the Y 3 times a week, if not more. I'm good at the job on the county. I fit a hole that was not represented before, as far as having a finance and accounting background. And that's good to have someone on the board that understands money and how money works. And just to clarify, no one's blaming the victim here. That's a bit of a stretch. Because the reality is, and I need you to come here to reality with me, is that the reality is we need to work together to get KSI to a position of financial where you are able to maintain yourself. That takes a teamwork effort. That's not blaming you, but I'm gonna be honest, there has not been work done to have a plan. So that's a clear lack of fiscal responsibility. And that's just what that is. You need to have a plan in place for where you're going in the future. That's not blaming you. We need to work together and get a plan in place. That has to make sense. Otherwise, what's the point? As I am fiscally responsible for taxpayer dollars. If I'm in office, and I was a compliance officer in the financial industry, I still hold my Series 24 as well as other designations in the financial industry. And I'm a fiduciary. I was a fiduciary in the financial industry. So that means I'm held in trust for other people's funds. And I am held in trust for your taxpayer dollars. And that means also being able to look at your budget and having the knowledge of how you're doing your budget, what's going on in that budget, and then seeing if there's anything that we can tweak or add to or work together to fix. That is not blaming the victim. That is merely working together as a team to get to an end goal. CASI needs a plan. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this. We need to work together on that plan. Everybody in this room needs to work together. CASI needs a plan for the future. You cannot continue going year to year on a simple song and a prayer and hoping it all works out, okay? And obviously I feel passionate about that because I have volunteered to help do that, and that's another reason you should keep me in office. It's not just about doing the everyday job, it's also taking that time to be out in the community and do other things to help people. The supervisor job technically is part-time. I'll be honest with you, it's really not. It's kind of a full-time job, because if you're doing it right, you're working full-time, and that's the way it should be. And that's what I do as a county supervisor. I know my job. I've said it before when I was appointed. I was appointed on a Thursday, I was sworn in on Friday, and by Monday, I had the budget down. I know the county budget. I can quote you our tax rate, any number of numbers off the top of my head, because I have studied it, I understand it, and I know it. And you need to have someone on the board that is able to do that and take that information and explain it to citizens in the county so that it makes sense. Because I want to educate. I don't want to use drama and half-truths and exaggerations, like, oh, there's a secrecy going on. There isn't a secrecy going on. But we need to work together to make the county a better place.
All right, well, I don't have all the experience they do, but how do you get that experience? You get it by being elected. That's the only way you can get it. None of them had the government experience until they were elected to their first position in government. And that's what I'm here for, to get that experience, to represent the taxpayers of this community. I think I'm a good choice because, I'm the next generation. When you look at the board, they're all, my dad's age, or my grandpa's age.
Let's not get ages in there, all right?
Nothing against that. I love my dad. But
You're in a room with people watch what you're saying there.
But with that age comes perspective, and we talked about it earlier, having a different perspective, having a different mind on there, I will be learning a little bit on the job if I get this job. But part of that comes with asking questions, and I don't know if you've ever looked at the checkbook that's available online, but I have plenty of questions when I look at that and see where some of the money's going. Some departments getting an awful lot of supplies at restaurants. That's suspicious to me. You can go look it up. Any month, there's a couple departments that do it. As a board member, I would be questioning that before I go in and just rubber stamp and say, yes, I approve to pay all these, credit card bills for the month. I would bring that up. Maybe some of them are legitimate and somebody's just doing a poor job of saying, we had a lunch meeting with the auditor of the state of Iowa or something like that. But there needs to be a little bit more oversight and questions being asked. And that's what I'm going to be here for, to ask those questions. And I need your support to do it. Thank you.
And just to clarify, the restaurant stuff is for the prison and the juvenile detention center, because we do buy food and supplies to feed these people. Otherwise,
the auditor's department also does that?
Is there a Virginia here? Is there a Virginia here in the audience? Virginia? Virginia? Okay.
Can I have this for a second?
I want to go ahead.
Wait, I just want to say.